need to say at the start
Okay.
of the tape. So, this is Virginia Lass, trustee for the State Historical Society of Missouri. And I'm here today, March 22nd, 2012, in Springfield, Missouri, at the Greene County Extension Center to interview June Richter about her experience attending and teaching at a one-room school. So there's our introduction, and we can start. Why don't we start by you telling me where you were born and when? And
Okay. I was born near Walnut Grove, Missouri, November the 15th, 1921.
Tell me a little bit about your family, your siblings and your parents.
I had two sisters. And I was actually born at my grandparents'
At their home?
at my grandparents' home and lived there until I was 2 years old. Then only moved just a little piece down the road. And I spent most of my childhood at my grandma's, which I now own that. Well, my daughter now lives there, but where I was born.
Oh my! Oh, Walnut Grove is beautiful. You had two sisters. Were you the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
And then who? What were their names?
Jean
And she
and
was
Shirley.
And Shirley. And what's the age difference?
I was 2 years older than Jean, 5 years older than Shirley.
So the oldest sibling. Where did you start school?
At Oak Grove. It's a little country school, Oak Grove.
How far was that from
It
home?
was about 2 miles, and of course we walked.
How old were you when you started?
5.
5?
Well, almost 6, yeah.
Okay, almost 6.
Yeah, it started in September usually, and then the 6th of November.
Okay, okay. But you were still 5 when you started first grade.
Yes.
And it was a one-room schoolhouse?
1 room. Yes, ma'am.
And maybe 2 miles from your home?
Approximately.
Yeah. That's a lot for a little 5-year-old legs to go. Did you walk all winter?
Yes, we walked in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if it was a blizzard or something, they would come and pick us up. But I do remember walking home. I would call it a blizzard, and it was kind of stupid thing to do because I was a younger one.
Yeah.
We took a different path than usual, cut through a field, and it had drifted so. And with my short legs, it was hard to get through there. And it took us forever to get to my aunt's house. We were about frozen when we got there.
Was this when you were in the first grade?
Well, I wasn't very old. I was maybe second or somewhere along in there. But if they had come looking for us, we wouldn't have been in the right.
Yeah.
We would have been the road. We cut through the field. Yeah.
How many of you?
Well, there was about 5 of us. And the older girl, I'd say she might have been in the 8th grade. I don't know, but she was the one that followed her, of course.
Of course. Oh my gosh. And this, where was well, you still own this place, you told me earlier. So, and where is it from?
It is about 3 miles northwest of Walnut Grove, I'd say.
What did the school look like? Outside, inside, whatever.
The inside is not refinished. I would love to, but I figured if I did, vandals would just go in there because they have done a lot in there in previous. And but I have siding on it now, like a metal siding. And covered the windows, of course, because it was. My dad used it for hay after years ago,
Okay.
And just took the windows out. So,
Yeah.
but it is standing in good condition that way. The
Mhm.
inside needs repair.
Right.
Mhm.
So when you went there, what did it look like inside? Was the blackboard in the front?
Oh yes, all across the front was a big blackboard, and it had a little, almost like you'd call you stepped up,
Uh-huh.
and this is where the teacher's desk sat, and behind the teacher's desk was the bell rope,
Okay.
and of course we had the double seats, two sit in a seat.
Side by side?
Yes,
Okay.
two in a seat,
Okay.
and there were 2 rows, and usually, and then this great big pot bellied stove is what we had to have.
Uh-huh.
And then when you first came in, there was a little, what you call a cloakroom.
Uh-huh.
That's where we left our dinner buckets and our coats and
Uh-huh.
everything.
Was the stove wood or coal?
Coal.
Coal.
Later on, they burnt wood, but most of the time, coal.
Coal.
Mm-hmm. And it was
And-
hard to heat. I mean, it was really cold in the wintertime.
So did you keep your coats on?
Sometimes we'd have to go get them.
Uh-huh. Windows on both sides?
Yes, it did at that time. Mm-hmm.
What direction? Were the windows on the east and west?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It's
It
interesting.
faced south. It faced south.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the bell was on the back
Yeah. Yeah.
north end of it. Mm-hmm.
When you started there, did you have any electricity in there?
Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah.
No, we never had electricity.
Okay.
Not when, when
Yeah,
I went to school.
when you went to school there. It seems like lots of these one-room schools were
Mhm.
built with that east and west windows,
Mhm.
so you got enough light.
Yes,
Occasionally one is built on the other axis,
yes.
but it's a later one,
Uh-huh.
a later building. It's really kind of interesting. How many children were in the school?
Oh, I'd say 20 or around such,
Okay. Goes from first grade through eighth?
first through eighth, and it was the same way when I taught there.
Okay.
And I had around 20, 25 students, but
Yeah.
I was disturbed at my dad because he usually hired a lot of people to help. He had quite a bit of land, and they would come. Some of them came from Arkansas, and I would just get a bunch of these kids started in school,
Mhm.
and they decided they got homesick and wanted to go home. So then here'd come another batch,
Mhm.
and it was kind of hard to keep.
So you not only had students from first to eighth grade, but the people who were there changed during the year.
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh. What about water? Did you have a well or
There was a well there, yes, and a pump.
and a pump?
Hmm.
Did everybody have their own cup?
Yes, we had our little cups. Some of the little collapsible ones, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Did everybody have a collapsible one?
no, not
Okay.
everybody.
Yeah, it's
Just the
interesting.
regular old tin cups with a handle, you know.
How about a library? Did you have a library area?
Just a little, yes, back in where that cloakroom,
Mhm.
just inside of where the cloakroom was, there was a little
Yeah,
library.
yeah. And did you rely just on the light from outside, or did you have coal lamps or?
Well, if anything going on at night,
Yeah.
but daytime that was it.
Open fire
Yes.
with all
We
those
had,
kids?
and then when I was in the first grade, I'll never forget, they had what they call a recitation badge,
Uh-huh.
and that's where we'd have to go up there and everyone sit on this bench and stand up and answer the questions that she asked, you know. And so one day we all got to go and, like this and squeak she paddled every one of us.
Did she?
Yes.
And she used a paddle.
A paddle.
Was it a specially made paddle? or her?
Yes, big. They're huge to me.
Oh, they did as a first grader?
Yeah, it was, had the handle and then cut out like this.
Uh-huh,
Mm-hmm.
just a regular paddle that
Yes,
she
it
used.
was.
Gosh. On the outside, did you have any playground equipment or
Oh, no,
anything?
no playground equipment at all. We, of course, played Annie Over,
Yeah,
and Black Man, and all that stuff, Just,
yeah.
but no playground.
Any balls and bats?
Not until later.
Uh-huh.
Not when I was
Not when
really
you were
young.
going there.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, yeah. So pretty much all games, no swings or slides or,
Oh, well, there was a kind of an old slide, but it was rough,
Yeah.
it was dangerous to go down. You
Yeah.
get splinters and all that stuff.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
pretty much that way.
So mostly games you did play Andy Over though?
Yes.
Over the schoolhouse.
You know.
Okay.
You heard of that, haven't you?
I have, and when it was raining out or the weather was really bad, what kind of games did you play inside?
Well, we didn't have a lot. Well, we had spelling bees and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe some. Maybe she'd read a story once in a while.
Yeah. Did you have recess, a morning and afternoon recess, and then a nice lunch break?
It seems as though we did. Now, it's a very short roll,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your teachers.
Well, that my first and second grade one is the one I told you about. I hate to say a lot about her because some of her ancestors might hear me. But she was really strict, I thought, for a first grade teacher.
What was her name? Do you mind telling me that? I mean,
Electa Stokes.
Electa.
Electa Stokes.
And she was really strict.
But her sister turned out to be my son's teacher.
Oh.
And I was very fond of her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, she would come and visit school when her sister was teaching there.
Oh, I see. And did you have other teachers as the grades went on?
Well, she was my first and second grade teacher. When I was in the third grade, they started sending the bus to school at Walnut Grove. So my dad paid tuition and we rode the bus. No, I'm sorry, I have to backtrack there. We moved into Walnut Grove when I was in the third grade and built a new house down here on our farm. And I went to third and fourth grade into Walnut Grove.
Okay.
Then moved back home when we had the house built and went to Oak Grove the fifth grade. And my teacher there was Ben Bradley. And he was one of my favorite all-time teachers. And after that, I got to have him in high school.
And you went to Walnut Grove to high
Walnut
school?
Grove High School. And he was my history teacher. And I just really liked him.
How was it going back and forth from the one room to into the town and then coming back?
Oh, I didn't mind it too much. It was different, of course. But the fifth grade is when I went there. Then when I was in the sixth grade is when the buses started running. So then I finished the rest of my years at the Walnut Grove School.
Okay. Was that, when you first went into Walnut Grove, was that kind of a shock to go to a town school?
It seemed different, yes.
Yeah.
Different. Quite different, but.
And Ben Bradley moved into Walnut Grove to teach in there then, huh?
Then he taught in high school
I
was in high school.
In high school there, I see. Yeah.
He was a principal.
What was so special about his teaching?
Well, I don't know. He was just, I guess his personality, it was just, I thought he was great. I think one of the things I liked so well about him was when he was a principal at my high school, my grandfather was from Tennessee and he wanted to take me back to Tennessee with him. And I went to the superintendent and asked him about going. And he said, "Oh, I would hate for you to go. You're taking geometry and you couldn't keep up with that, you know." And so I went to Mr. Bradley and he said, "You go on that trip, so that's be more educational for you than 2 weeks of school anytime."
Yeah, yeah.
So I told my grandpa what he said.
Yeah.
And I went.
Perfect. um, so you had the experience as a student in the one-room schoolhouse in the very first grades, and then one of the upper grades. So you kind of had the experience of being one of the older children and one of the youngest.
Sorry, in the middle.
Yeah.
Fifth grade would be kind of in the middle.
In the middle? Okay.
Well, I guess.
I always think of fifth graders as half grown, so I would never underestimate a fifth grader. Do you think you got a good start in education in a
Yes.
one-room schoolhouse?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I don't want to say which did you like better, but which do you think made the greatest impression on you?
You mean which school?
Yeah. In the one room or in a larger school where you were in separate grades?
Well, of course, there was more activity in when I got to.
I guess maybe what I'm getting at is how valuable was it to be a younger one and hear those older students, or be an older one and helping those younger ones? Did you think about that at all when you were?
Not a whole lot,
Yeah.
but I see what you mean, because the older students, they were an impression on me, you know, and it was nice having someone older to kind of. Some of them were my second cousins, so they kind of, you know, watched after
Kept you in line and protected you. And you walked all the time, and it was a good 2 miles. What are some of the activities you remember from school? I mean, Christmas parties or Halloween or?
Well, we used to have plays, and then we'd go to Bolivar and enter in, you know, some of those contests and things, and plays. And then we would have, of course, we had pie suppers, and we had, I can remember having kind of like a fair at the school one time, because I remember I took this big pumpkin. Of course, my grandpa had helped me raise it, but I got the prize on this big pumpkin, and so this one old lady, she wanted that pumpkin real bad, and so I didn't much want to give it to her, but my grandpa said, "Yeah, I think you should just go ahead and give it to her." We had more pumpkins, but not that big. So I did, and I thought, well, maybe she'll give me a dime or something, you know. Guess what she gave me?
I have no idea.
A handkerchief.
I thought you were going to say $1 or something. A handkerchief.
So that wasn't much of a prize for
That isn't
a
the
child
lesson.
for my prize pumpkin.
No.
I'll never forget that. I wasn't very old, but I'll never forget that.
Oh my! So at this fair, you weren't selling the things that you produced.
No, people just brought and to show them, you know, what they had grown.
And she gave you a handkerchief.
Gave me a handkerchief and a big old pumpkin.
Tell me how they ran the pie fairs.
How they ran, huh?
The pie fairs, or the
pie suppers.
Pie suppers.
Well, they would usually they'd decorate their boxes real pretty, you know, and have their pie in there. And of course, it would be mainly their boyfriend that would bid on their pies. And then, of course, the others would bid high, make them so they'd have to pay a whole bunch for those pies, you know. And then you got to eat with that person. Then we would have like a jar of pickles for the most lovesick couple, a bar of soap for the man with the dirtiest feet, and a rolling pin for the most hen-pecked husband. And people would bid on this, you see, and things like that.
Now, were these mostly like the lovesick couple? Those wouldn't be students. They would
No,
be
they'd be in the community.
in the community.
Yes.
So it was
Yes.
great fun for the adults
Yes.
to do that. Yeah.
And then I think a penny a vote for the prettiest girl, maybe a box of candy for the prettiest girl, and things like that. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. And Halloween programs,
Yes,
Christmas.
we'd dress up in costumes for Halloween, and
What
we
kind of
had
costumes did you like to do?
well, I guess but this is when I was teaching, I guess. My husband dressed up in my grandma's bathing suit. Bathing suit like they wore
The
years ago.
old-fashioned,
Oh,
yeah.
I came to her down to Boise, and I wore her riding habit. But I can't remember what. Well, mainly, I think it was just like I think I was a witch or something like that when I was in grade school. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And
Christmas parties.
we always had a Christmas program. We had a huge tree, and we got to decorate it. Of course, no fancy decorations like we have today. All like maybe popcorn and cranberries, and then homemade, things that we put on there.
And what kind of a program would you do? Recitations and things like
Yes.
that? Did you work a long time on memorizing those things?
Oh yeah.
And then all the parents came, and these were
All the parents and
in the schoolroom.
yeah, came to the schoolroom. And
Okay.
it was kind of crowded, but that's what they had.
Yeah. And an end-of-year party, maybe? Did you have
End of year.
end of the
I
school
can't-
year?
Oh, we always had a picnic. Like
Picnic?
kind of like a picnic.
And did the parents come to that too,
Uh,
or was it just for
I think they
kids?
did, yes. And
Yeah.
but I'll never forget my last day of school when I was teaching. But you probably want to ask me about my younger.
Well, right now, we'll get to the teaching.
Yeah.
We'll get to the teaching. Something else that when did school start?
Well, in September,
In September. And then when did it end?
usually in May.
In May. So you had a full 9
Yes,
months
yes.
of school. Okay, that was one thing. And school started at 9? 9 in the morning?
Yes. And out about 4.
And out about 4. Okay, I knew I'd forgotten something. And
Mm-hmm.
those were 2 things I had. Did all the kids in the schools have chores? I mean, did somebody have to erase the blackboard and clean the erasers?
She just chose someone to do that at
Okay.
different times,
Was that kind of an honor to get to do
Oh
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we thought it was.
Yeah, okay. So carrying water in, carrying wood in, erasers, blackboard. Were
And
there other
that's-
kinds of chores?
Some of the older boys would carry that coal bucket.
Yeah, the coal bucket,
and wood.
Yeah.
But we just burned the coal when I was there.
What did you take for your lunch every day?
Well, usually ham, and I always had a good. I thought some kids didn't have all that much, but we'd swap back and forth, swap things. And
Some things don't change.
No.
Yeah.
Biscuits, ham and biscuits, and maybe some fruit, and And then if you had these little, I used to take these little cold cream jars with peaches in it,
Oh, yeah.
and maybe a little bit of whipped cream on top of that. And sometimes that was a treat.
Yeah.
And my some cousins across the branch there, she raised those little bitty yellow tomatoes, those little pear tomatoes,
Uh-huh.
and they'd bring them in their lunch. We'd have deviled eggs. We'd have just pretty good lunch.
Good. Good.
Of course, our lunch boxes were the tin, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. And you still live in the area, so do you keep in contact, or did you keep through the years in contact with any of those kids you went to the one-room school with?
Most of them.
Most of them?
Mm-hmm.
And most of them continued to live in the area?
Not really. No, not a whole lot of them stayed around.
Yeah. But you just kept in touch with them.
And we still have school reunions. I've had 3 for the Oak Grove school reunions.
Oh, my.
At the Walnut Grove, we have one every 5 years.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Now let's talk some about your teaching career. When did you start?
Well, in
teaching?
42.
42. So you graduated from high school in what year?
39.
39. And then did you go to Missouri State, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how did you happen to get this job teaching in the same school that you had gone to?
Well, it was close to my parents' home, and my dad didn't own the property at that time.
Uh-huh.
And I knew most all the board members, so I just went around and asked for the job
And got it.
got it.
And you had a couple of years of college then?
Actually 3.
3.
And I had my certificate, of course.
Okay.
I just, yeah. But
So no wonder you got the job. You had more education than most who started,
well,
who were in one
probably
room.
so.
Yeah, yeah.
But-
And how long did you teach
Just the 1 year, just a
One
one
year.
term. My husband wouldn't let me alone.
there?
Didn't think
So
I
you wanted to get married?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
I did, and he went to the service.
Oh, of course.
And it was, well, at that time, then he was, of course, he was in the service, and I went ahead and taught. And then, well, of course, the war being on and everything, they started having school on Saturdays,
Uh-huh.
and they did this. It was nice for me because I got out in April that way.
Right.
And then I went out to Oregon where he was.
Where in Oregon?
Well, Medford
Uh-huh.
at Camp White,
Uh-huh.
his first White. And then later on he went to Corvallis, which is Camp Adair.
Yeah.
So I spent about a year out there.
Okay.
And the mailman, I knew him real well. And of course I was wanting to get letters from him. So the kids, some of my students would go out and meet the mailman every day, and I thought it was nice of him. He'd stop and give them my mail.
Yeah. Oh, that is nice.
If I had a letter.
That is nice.
Yes.
And then did he eventually go overseas?
Yes. The last day of school, there was this one boy that was always forgetting something and wanted to go home, you know, and he'd do that just real often just to get to leave school for a while.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, I forgot something at home. I have to go back and get it." And I thought, well, okay, go ahead. Well, I'm glad I did because they had all made me a block with their names on it for a quilt.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunt had made the Oak Grove School
Oh,
and for the middle of it. And then each student had their name. And so then the Oak Grove Church pieced that for me and made me a quilt
how wonderful.
with all the children's names on it.
How wonderful.
I thought that was nice.
Yeah. Um, so when were you married?
When was I married?
Yeah.
The 7th of November, 1942. I had my 70th anniversary this year.
Oh my
Would
goodness,
have.
isn't that wonderful?
Mhm.
And it was okay with the school for you to be married. You started that year teaching
Mhm.
unmarried, then got married,
Yes.
but you knew most of the board members.
Yes.
I just say that because I interviewed a woman the other day who's got married kind of in that same space of time,
Mhm.
only earlier, years earlier, but her future father-in-law was one of the board members.
Mhm.
So she taught the rest of the year.
Of course, I didn't ask their permission.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Then at the end of that year, you were traveling with your husband, moving from these bases in Oregon and.
Well, I just went. No, I went to Medford, and then when he went on maneuvers, I came back home, and then
Okay.
he moved to another camp, and then I went there.
Okay, okay. And did you go back to teaching?
No,
There was
I
just
had-
the 1 year?
I had several offers, but I never did.
Uh-huh. How did you organize your day when you taught there? I mean, you've got children of
Well,
all
yes,
ages.
it was really hard. You had like the 5th grade over here, maybe in this corner, and the 8th grade over here in this corner, and I had the little ones. There were 4 in the 4th grade. I'll never forget that, and 2 in the 1st grade. No, I'll take that. 2 in the 2nd grade. Didn't have anyone in the 1st grade. 2 in the 2nd grade, and just like that, and you had when I'd have the class, it was hard.
Yes.
Because, and I think it would be hard on the children because they'd have to be listening. They couldn't not hear. And it was kind of hard. Really did.
But your experience as a student did that.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't think it was hard, did you?
Well, not as bad. No, not when I was a student, I didn't.
Oh,
But,
perspective changes some.
yes, and you could spend so much time with these and so much time with these, and then it was strange, but yet it was.
Did you enjoy that year?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Were you exhausted at the end of each day?
Well, almost. I had an 8th grade boy though that he built the fire for me. He'd come early in the morning and build the fire for me.
Mm-hmm. Did you have to pay him to come in early and build the fire?
I did. I didn't have to. I don't. I did. I paid him myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would have paid him or not, but
Yeah.
probably not. Since I had such a big check.
Right. Do you remember how much you were paid?
$70.
A month?
Mm-hmm.
$70 a month. Well, $70 went farther. Yeah. $70 a month, and you could live at home. And,
I lived at my parents'. Yeah.
Did you have any discipline problems or anything?
Well, this one older boy, he was kind of I had to kind of watch him. He turned out all right, but it's kind of leery of him,
Yeah. Now, earlier when we were talking about you as a student, you thought of something to talk about in your experience as a teacher. And I don't remember now exactly what the subject was, but what are some of your feelings about teaching in a one-room schoolhouse? Or stories to tell, or what made that year memorable?
Well, of course, I guess my mind was partly on my husband,
Absolutely.
But I feel like I did the best I could, and the children, they understood. They were all, especially the older ones,
Mm-hmm.
and they helped me quite a bit. the older ones. One girl, well, then I had the car after my husband, after I was married, I had the car to drive to school. And she, I'd bring her home, but she helped me sweep and clean up and everything, which was nice. But one thing funny, you see, I got the car and I was driving it to school. Well, this old lady down here on the corner, she was kind of the nosy type. Well, my husband came and visited at school before we got married, before he went back to California. And then he came back to Missouri to be inducted because he was shipwright foreman in the California shipyards, which was the youngest guy that ever done that. And they hated to lose him, but Uncle Sam thought he was too young to have that kind of a job. So they were going to draft him, so he came back to Missouri to be drafted. And that week, I guess before we got married, he would come to school once in a while. He would help the kids with their arithmetic and stuff like that. Wasn't there a lot, but just now and then. Well, this old lady saw the car, Well, then after I got married, and she said, she told someone, I don't know how those kids learn anything. That boy's up there all the time. And then another man, I would play, I played baseball with the kids, which they thought that was something. And I could catch their flies and all that, and those boys, they really thought I was something for the teacher to play ball with. And this man, he passed there and saw us playing ball a time or two. Well, it was a recess. He said, I don't think those kids ever go to school, they just play ball all the time.
But he didn't object to you playing ball, that man.
Well, I don't suppose so.
Maybe he didn't.
If he did, he never told me, but he just thought we played ball more than we had school, because it would be the time that he had passed would be playing ball.
But it happened to be recess time. I'm just kind of blank. I keep thinking of things that maybe I haven't been able to articulate very well, but you think going to that one-room schoolhouse or teaching in a one-room school had a lasting impression on you?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
How?
Well, it's just an experience that you don't, well, especially the younger people, they can't hardly comprehend how it could be done.
No.
But I feel I accomplished something by doing that. And then the next year, that school consolidated. So.
Now, did you go on and teach later in your career? Or was that your
That's the only time I taught.
That's the only time you taught? Having taught in a junior high at one time in my career, it's just boggles my mind thinking about all those different things going on.
I did do a lot of substituting.
Yeah.
Later on.
Yeah.
In both Bodark and Ash Grove.
At the courses you took at Missouri State, do you think they were as helpful as what you learned by simply remembering what your teachers had done? Did you model your teaching after somebody?
Not really. Of course, I had some good classes, and I had some good teachers at SMS. The Hennickes, they were sisters, and they were both real good. And I had several teachers that I was fond of, some of them that I weren't too fond of, but that goes along with it, doesn't it?
It does. Yes, it does.
Are you familiar with SMS teachers, some of the teachers?
Well, I am in the history department, but not beyond that. I have several friends in the history.
You've heard of Dr. Virginia Craig.
Yes.
She was my, I guess, English literature and she would scare you. I mean, she would, Miss Cruzzle, and you were expected to jump right up and answer the question immediately. Well, uh, I was making back then it was E instead of a A.
Yeah.
I was making an E in there, and I got one of my first migraines. I didn't know what was happening, and I had to get up. I thought, what's going on? I had to get up, and I went down to the restroom, because I left the room. She didn't have any sympathy for anybody that got sick. She didn't think you should get sick. And she'd get up there in front and try to illustrate how we looked with heels on. She didn't think you should wear high heels. And because I had left the room that day, I got an S.
One day.
I explained to her that I didn't know what was happening. I said I didn't want to fall over on the floor.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. I was having a migraine.
So you definitely didn't model your teaching after her style.
No.
Did you have your students memorize things and give recitations like you had done in school?
Some, not as much.
Uh-huh.
No.
Well, is there anything else any stories you'd like to tell about your experience as a teacher or as a student that we ought to get on this record?
Let me think. Well, one thing we did when I was a student, we did have a wood pile out there, and I think it was for future use. And when it was snowy, and we made forts out of these different rooms even, out of that wood. And I guess it was kind of dangerous. It could have caved in on us, but and then snow outside, and all over it. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And of course, our bathrooms one was in the one corner, and the boys was in the left-hand corner, and the girls in the right-hand corner, as far apart as they could get. And they had little fences around them,
Okay.
They were rock and had little fences around them.
So they were rock.
So nobody could see in it.
Yeah, yeah. The fences were rock?
No, the building was kind of like rock.
Okay. And one at one end of the school property and one at the other?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, well.
And of course, it was, of course, recess was the most fun.
Right, right. But basically games that you played without any equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Except for, the softball was when you were teaching.
Yeah, that was when I was teaching.
Yeah.
We didn't play baseball when I was in grade school.
Right, right.
Just those little old-fashioned games.
Yeah. Hopscotch?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have jump ropes?
I can't remember that at the country school, but when I was at Walnut Grove, I remember jacks.
Jacks.
We played long jacks.
Boys play marbles?
Yes.
Did the girls play marbles?
Not then, but I wanted to, but they didn't very many girls do it.
Right. I know that.
Then we played also King on the Mountain. This was when I was in the fourth grade in Walnut Grove. Had this big old pile of cinders, I guess, and we'd get kind of dirty, of course.
Yeah. Well, are there anything else we should add to this? Anything else you'd like to say about this? Let's see if I think I've covered those questions.
I'm trying to think.
I really appreciate your doing this. It's adding these stories together. The pie suppers, and there's so many things that were alike, but each one is different, and it's very nice. Thank you for coming in today.
Well, you're very welcome.
Do it.
Okay.
Okay, we have one more story from June Richter. Go right ahead.
My little cousin was in the 2nd grade, and my grandpa asked her, said, "Does she ever whip you?" "No, she just looks at you."